Take a seat.
And I don't want to let anything, number or words, to be a cause for our being so pessimistic in life. So the theme of what I want to say now is, how do we ensure that we can turn adversity into opportunity? As far as doing well is concerned, Singapore is seen as a great model. All over the world I went in my job as a foreign ministry official, people talk about Singapore as a model to emulate. Economically speaking, the economic miracle, the stability, the harmony which we have in Singapore, when we have so much of potential to be right-stricken, multiracialism. We are not like a country, a normal country. We are so multiracial, so multi-religious, and a lot of differences, but yet we are one. So when we first started establishing the CDC, because we believe that having achieved economic wealth, let's ensure that the social fabric is close, tight-knit, and one. But before long, we were told that there was economic recession, and we had to go for jobs. And then it occurred to me, what is harmony when your stomach is empty? That's where I think inclusivity is so critical. And we went about ensuring that those who are out of job, retrenched, those who are in the lower income group, those who are handicapped, are all taken care of. And this is why through the Northeast CDC and all other cities in Singapore, we want to ensure that enough programs to make sure that Singapore believes in that approach to inclusivity. So whether it's kiddies, right? Very simple example of retirees going about organizing kiddie rides for the people in their own neighborhood. But by that process, in fact, they encourage neighborliness. We have other programs like Retail Incubator. We have economic programs for what we call JAB, Jobs and Bonding. And then we went on to GEL by ensuring that all those out of job are not only employed, but they remain employable. And that's where we introduced what we call jobs, employability, and lifelong learning. So we move on. We found that the curve of change is so rapidly changing that we have to innovate, we have to be on the ball, we have to make changes sooner than expected. And that's the meaning of today's society when we talk about change. I'm glad that GSIF has chosen this theme about change, and that reminds me about what's happened in America, Obama. And Obama, when he won, he highlighted three things. Demography talks about people, culture talks about software, and technology talks about what we can use as a medium to make sure that we remain inclusive. Bear that in mind, I think we'll go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to come to you, Pamela. So Vera talks about demography, culture, and technology as areas that we should tackle and bring together and perhaps harness in order to effect some of the changes that we want to see in the community. But fundamentally, even as we take a one step back and ask ourselves, does this system actually marginalize certain sectors of the population at all?
I hadn't thought about sharing this story until I was listening to Penny pose the question about the system and marginalization. And all of a sudden I recalled a personal story. My son was 7 years old at the time, 20 years ago. And we were living in Washington, D.C. And I was very active in the community, specifically around the homelessness that existed. And very disturbed about the fact that there were people in the United States of America sleeping on the streets. And of course, the dinner table conversations around supper time with my husband and my children was around the appalling situation of the homeless in Washington. Well, about maybe 8 months into this sort of role that I was playing, my son came home from school. And with him he had brought a homeless man who lived up the street and lived in a tent. And he said, "Mom, I brought home one of your favorite people." And we would pass this man every day on the street. And, Jesse would always make conversation with this guy, and I was always, come on, time to get to school, time to get to school. And here was this man smelling to high heaven of alcohol, and there I was, standing at the doorway, and I had to put my money where my mouth was. And I had to invite this man in to my home and sit down and cook a meal and have a conversation with him. It was probably one of the most uncomfortable situations I've lived through in a while. And I thought how easy it is for us to actually talk about marginalization and change, and how difficult it is when we're actually faced with it. And when we really go down from here, from where we are discussing it, to actually living this, it faces, you face a very different situation because it hits you here. It's no longer up here, it's right here. And I think that is our challenge. It's not just about mindset, it's actually overcoming a completely different way of looking at the world. And that is why I am an incurable optimist, believe it or not, because young people are the ones that are going to really change it. In the last year and a half, I've had the tremendous pleasure of actually working with some of the top MBA students in the world. And they are desperate to find a way of not just focusing on padding their pockets, but finding a way of combining markets and meaning. And that is not just about doing good and not just about doing well, but actually combining the two so that you don't lead a dichotomous life where from 9 to 5 you get your money and thereafter you do good. It really is about how do we bring those things together. And I see the present economic situation as a huge opportunity. Let's not lose this opportunity to actually recreate what it is that we want, how we want our markets to look, how we want our society to look. And one of the wonderful things in the last 10 years of working with social entrepreneurs is to see how these people really frame their whole life passion around combining markets and meaning. Whether it's, Cristobal Colon working in Spain, creating a social business to actually give dignity and self-worth to mentally disabled people who could not possibly get a job. These aren't mentally retarded people. These are people who are clinically insane. I think I've told the story to a number of you, and I'm not going to repeat myself. But there is a new way forward. Let's not waste this opportunity, and let's not intellectualize too much, because in the end, it's going to have to hit us where our gut is, and not just where our heads are.
Thank you, Pamela. I just want to take you on this. So you spoke about, marginalized, or I asked you about marginalization, whether it exists or not, and you gave me a pretty indirect yet very direct and profound answer, and that is intellectually, yes, no, maybe, but in the heart, completely so. So that means everyone of us here, including yourself, are guilty at some point in time. How important is this sense of dignity itself? Is this something given, or is this something from within?
We don't bring dignity to people. People have to find meaning in what they're doing and gain dignity. It's a little bit like saying, I'm going to empower women. That's nonsense. We don't empower anybody. We open the opportunity for people to be empowered, and I certainly think that we all are on the same page on that one.
Well, absolutely. And Veronica, Pamela spoke about opening up doors, opportunities, and in particular, she's absolutely optimistic about young people. You work with a lot of young people, but many of the young people, when you first meet them, are really young people who will have a rather, I guess, low level of dignity. They live, in places that we can't even imagine. So how do you open doors to them?
About 10 years ago, I started to realize what Pamela says about meaning in life and purpose and all of that. And I think, as probably Penny also mentioned earlier, that I could stay at home and be in my comfort zone as a mom or a wife, or do my little even work at that point of time. But then I realized that, hey, this is not what life is all about. I came to realize that in order to give meaning to my life, I need to bring meaning back into those in need. And I think at that point in time, I wouldn't have all the ideas of all these jargons, inclusive, sustainability, and all that in my everyday lingo. But yeah, as I grow into this, and I think at that point of time, there's a need to reach out to most part of Indonesia. So then I started with my own personal struggle about finding meaning and purpose in my life, and I realized that I need to invest in young people. I had 2 children then, and I started to realize that one of the most devastating things that could ruin the life of a child is drugs. Although drugs is just one of the risk behavior, however, drug can ruin a child's life. So I thought, why don't I do something? How can I prevent this from a child? From that moment on, I built on that, and we started the foundation. And we want to bring this. We believe in the power of knowledge. We believe that knowledge can change people. We were naive then. It was not that easy. You have to alter the way they believe, how their perception of things on life. So then we started a learning house, and we tried to locate people, young people, who are not given the opportunity. Like Pamela says, it's not about empowering. It's nonsense, right? It's giving them the opportunity. And I think poverty, the worst form of poverty is not just out of money, don't have food, but not given the opportunity.
Take a seat.